take one more question, and this will be the last one. Just because I've seen a couple Justin Fields questions in here, and I don't think we answered them, so we'll answer this one right here. Should Nagy start Justin Fields or let him sit to learn? Predictions for the Bears this season? Blake, floor is yours.
I kind of like with the starting with the veteran quarterback, but I feel like in recent times, it really hasn't proven much. Like if he's ready to start and he knows the playbook, which I'm sure he does, and I think he's much more talented than Dalton ever was. I think just let him start. And here's a couple of examples. We saw what the Texans did when they wanted to have Deshaun Watson not be the starter, and he didn't get first-team reps. Now, he came in against the Bengals, played all right, and then he had that amazing rookie season. How did they not know that he was going to be that good? I feel like they had to have known, right? We saw with Tyrod Taylor twice. With Baker Mayfield, he started a few games, then Baker Mayfield came in, played great. Then for the Chargers, Tyrod Taylor played against the Bengals. It was one of the most boring games of the whole year. It was not entertaining whatsoever. Justin Herbert comes in, plays amazing. I feel like you can start these rookie guys, and if they are talented, just throw them out there. I know there's the whole, you don't want to throw them to the wolves, hurt their confidence or whatever, but we've seen time and time again the veteran quarterback or the bridge quarterback who's supposed to be just comes in and is really not all that good themselves. So it's what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
And another example, do you remember Mike Glennon when they had Trubisky? And I think they took him, they benched him after he fumbled because there was a snap that hit his knee and it just rolled across and the Packers got the ball. And it was soon after, I think it was the next game after that. It was.
Yeah. And as bad as Trubisky was an evident upgrade over Mike Glennon. Yeah. So I'm 100% with you. I'm glad you're preaching this. The bridge quarterback, in my opinion, is one of the biggest moments of BS in the NFL. If you think real quarterback development is happening in the NFL by sitting these guys, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you because I don't think it's happening. The best example everybody points to is Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes had 50 touchdowns the first season he started. 1 year sitting doesn't cause people to have 50 touchdowns the first year they start. He had one of the greatest quarterback regular seasons of all time in his first year of starting. So I don't believe in the bridge quarterback. I mean, Lamar Jackson, we saw Lamar Jackson, people said he has to sit, blah, blah, blah. He carried Baltimore to the playoffs as a rookie. They weren't very good with Joe Flacco, and they had an excellent defense. And the moment they put Lamar Jackson in, everything changed. So I think with Justin Fields and Andy Dalton, I think Andy Dalton's a competent starter. But to me, you got to put in Justin Fields. He's more dynamic. He's more accurate down the field. I think should the Bears let him sit the year to learn? No, I think that's a bad idea, and I don't think they will because obviously they're playing with fire. Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace could be gone, and so they need Justin Fields to be on the field and showing something. Predictions for the Bears this season. Honestly, I think the Bears will be a near 500 team. I think 8-9, 9-8, 7-10 sounds about right. I think the issue for them is that one, I think there are holes in the roster. I think their offensive line, though they got Tevin Jenkins, I still think it's a little bit of a question mark. I personally am not a fan, though they have Cole Kmet. Allen Robinson, he remains a question mark on whether he's going to play with him and his franchise tag situation. Mm-hmm. And Darnell Mooney, I don't personally think that's enough. I wish they had a more defined number 2 option. I'm not the biggest fan of Nagy's play calling, and I do think Nagy doesn't do the best job of taking advantage of the run game, especially the quarterback run game, which they only ran the football well for the first time under Nagy when Nagy wasn't calling plays. He's back to calling plays. Justin Fields, a large aspect of his talent is his ability to run the football personally, and if they can't take advantage of it because they couldn't with Mitchell Trubisky, I think that's going to be a problem. And then I'm cheering for the Bears defense, actually. I don't cheer for the Bears at all. Everybody knows how much I hate the Bears, but I'm cheering for their defense. My man Sean Desai, let's go. Sean Desai is representing a nation, but I think there's holes in their defense. I think there's real question marks in terms of with their defensive line. I think they're overly relying on both Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack. I don't think Robert Quinn has lived up. I like their linebackers. Roquan Smith is very good, but I then have questions at the corner position. I know Jalen Johnson played good. He's a grabby, physical corner, but Kyle Fuller is not there anymore, and Kyle Fuller has been consistently one of the 15 best cornerbacks in the NFL the last few years. Eddie Jackson, we saw how precipitous his drop-off has been since Vic Fangio left. Another important reason when I talk about Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt, why scheme has such an impact on safety play. Just look at the safeties that play with Vic Fangio. Justin Simmons is now being talked about how Eddie Jackson was being talked about 2 years ago. So that goes and tells you how much of an impact that has. So I do think the Bears have a lot of question marks where I think that'll ultimately hold back their team. But in terms of Fields, he should start as soon as possible. Whenever you feel like Justin Fields can run your offense from the sense that he can call your offense in the huddle and get your offense lined up correctly, he should start as soon as that's the point.
Mm-hmm. And I'm with you, like with the sitting quarterbacks and like the whole bridge thing. But I will say this: the bridge quarterback like idea is good when your bridge is actually like a good quarterback and will win you games and makes you competitive. I think it's when the quarterback is like less than average or not actually like able to like be a solid enough game manager to where you can win games. Because if you're losing games, the fans are basically just going to demand for the quarterback you drafted. Like for Aaron Rodgers' sake, they had Brett Favre. They had a well-established quarterback. For the Packers now, they have Aaron Rodgers, who well-established quarterback. So Love's actually like he's learning while sitting. It's not like he's sitting for 3 weeks and then he goes in because like, yeah, he's probably learning a lot those 3 weeks, but it's nothing like that's going to make him from a quarterback who's unplayable to a quarterback who's going to throw for, 40 touchdowns or whatever.
Right.
So if you have like that even Alex Smith's a good example, or
he's the best.
Or a Jared Goff, or I mean, I don't know, like you could say Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins, like the mid-tier or above good quarterbacks, like I think those guys are the bridge quarterbacks that you want to have because you're still competitive. Your team's not just getting waxed while your star quarterback who you just drafted, who's a high prospect, is just biting his nails to get in. It wouldn't be like that at all. You want him to come in.
I think the key thing is that you want him to come in when he's ready to play. And that's the argument I make. Like, theoretically, Jimmy G is that guy because the Niners can win with Jimmy G. They've proven they can win with Jimmy G, right? So theoretically, he's the kind of guy. But to me, it's not a competition because once you give up those assets to go get the quarterback, when he's ready, just because you have Jimmy G or Andy Dalton or Alex Smith or Jared Goff or Kirk Cousins, whichever guys you named, I don't think it matters. There's no benefit in those guys finishing out a season or playing for you because they're not the future. So if your quarterback is ready to play, whoever you traded up for, then get him on the field, in my opinion. If it takes him a year to play, then luckily you have Jimmy G to play for a year. You have Alex Smith to play for a year. If it takes him 6 weeks, then luckily you had Jimmy G for 6 weeks, and now your quarterback is ready to go. But I see no benefit in if the guy is ready, waiting because you have Jimmy G or you have Alex Smith or you have Jared Goff or any of the guys you named personally.
Well, I guess to counter that, like we've seen in the past, and I would bring up the 2016 Cowboys when they thought Dak was the guy, and now he played great, but Tony Romo was a spectacular top 10 quarterback, and I think a lot of Cowboys fans in the media were, thinking like, if that was Tony Romo in there, would they have won? Now, so I'll say this: Tony Romo was better than Alex Smith.
That's important, right?
Yeah,
because Tony Romo was a legitimate top quarterback in the NFL. Yeah. He was a legitimate franchise quarterback, so he kind of changed the conversation. And then Dak had arguably, outside of Justin Herbert, I think Dak's rookie season is the best rookie season I've ever seen. So, like, those are two outlier situations for me in this particular situation.
Definitely. I'll give my prediction. I don't think they're going to start Fields right away. I think they'll go with Dalton. I thought the defensive points – I really think this defense is very, very contingent on Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks' health. Because we've seen what happens when Hicks gets injured. And he's been injured the last few years, and he's 32. Their run defense goes from really, really good to very, very average. And
Khalil Mack's production goes from top defensive player in the NFL to really good defensive player.
Yeah, and you can't really it's not his fault, but when their defense really hinges on those two guys, like it's concerning. And I think the Fuller loss is really not being talked about enough because, as you mentioned, like with Fuller, he was regarded as a top 5 corner. He's been consistently just a really, really good cornerback one on any given team. Losing that's going to hurt, and Jalen Johnson was a good 2, but having him be the 1, I don't know. I'm not really sold on their other corners, and they didn't address defense at all in the draft very much. If you remember, they traded up for Tevin Jenkins, so they took 2 offensive guys. They didn't really have many mid-round picks. They didn't really get to upgrade their defense with depth. So, yeah, I am a little more concerned about the Bears defense because they really are just 1 or 2 injuries away from struggling mightily. And you could say that about a lot of teams, though, right? Like you could say the same thing about the Packers, but I feel like the Packers defense is just like they're guys that are like the 4th to 8th best defenders are maybe a little bit like you trust them more than the Bears because the Bears really have 4 just incredible guys that just hold it all down. And when one of those guys goes out, yeah, it is really concerning.
I agree. I agree.
So yeah, I'd say a similar record with the contingency that Justin Fields is not, like the next best quarterback or he doesn't turn out to have like the best rookie season,
Mm-hmm.